For the pledge,
in
please.
It is horrible. That really needs to be replaced.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Take the roll.
O'Connor.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Alms.
Here.
McCormick.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Hoggett.
Here.
Hall.
Here.
All right, comments and suggestions from citizens?
Good evening. Ron Howard, 1902 Shasta Drive, Hudson, Wisconsin. I was here last meeting with some comments on taxes that weren't being paid and I thought should be paid. And thanks to our city administrator, Mr. Willie, he got a letter back to me in 2 days explaining. But I find it very concerning. The Woodland Hills I thought was paying, weren't paying, but a dialysis clinic has to pay $21,000 in taxes. Comforts of Home pays over $100,000 in taxes. Woodland Hills pays nothing and takes $4 million. I estimate it's $4 million a year in tax or in rent in. I just find that very unusual. And thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
That's all.
Anybody else? Any other comments? Any other comments? Any other comments? Close that part of the agenda. Discussion and possible action on consent agenda items.
To approve the minutes from the regular meeting of March 26, 2018. To approve claims in the amount of $782,589.81. Contingent on payment of any outstanding debt owed to the city and successful completion of the background check. To approve the issuance of 9 regular operator licenses that are on file at the city clerk's office for a period of April 10th, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. To authorize the community development director and city administrator to begin the recruitment process for the city engineer position. To approve the use of public works and park equipment reserve funds for the purchase of a field drag for Grandview Park in the amount of $5,000. To approve the use of undesignated capital funds for the replacement of 9 garage doors at a cost of $19,378. To set a public hearing date of May 7th, 2018 for a zoning map amendment from R1 one family residential to B2 general business at 690 Darnold Drive, Hudson GNG LLC. To set a public hearing date of May 7th, 2018 for a zoning map amendment from R1 one family residential to B2 general business at 674 Darnold Drive, 687 Darnold Drive, and St. Croix, tax parcel 236-2038-00-040, Outlot 2, SSHD Inc. To set a public hearing date of May 7th, 2018 for a zoning map amendment from public to PUB public to R2 two-family residential and comprehensive plan amendment from public to single and two-family residential at 815 5th Street. To set a public hearing date of May 21st, 2018 for a comprehensive plan amendment to adopt the Hudson Waterfront Vision Study. And to approve the letter of engagement with Bolton and Mink for design services in the amount of $16,500 and to authorize the preparation of plans and specifications for the 2018 storm sewer repair project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Roll call.
Morissette?
Yes.
Alms?
Yes.
McCormick?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Hoggett?
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on fire station.
So I asked to put this on the agenda in the last meeting. We had a joint fire board meeting a couple of weeks ago now, and you can see in the minutes that we put into your packet. So in that last meeting, in talking with the partners, they put a motion forth just saying that they are supportive of looking at cost-effective building on Ward Avenue for a new fire station. Understanding that that there were going to be more costs associated with that from an operational standpoint. And sort of in the background of all this, just making sure that, through all the conversations through the EMS with them, that they're on board with a fire station, that they're on board with our fire department, with our service, long term. And they went so far as to say that they would look at potentially committing to longer than current contract. Obviously, we didn't talk contract negotiation in that conversation, but and so I kind of wanted to bring it forth and just have that conversation and just look to see how everybody else feels about building a fire station on Ward Avenue. So I don't know, with that, Scott?
I have a question for you, Bill. Yeah. How long are our partners contractually obligated?
They are currently on, correct me if I'm wrong, a 5-year rolling?
That's correct.
When does it come up? When does it come due?
Technically, every year they could notify
Every year,
us.
okay.
So if they, at the end of, or I think it's 90 days, isn't it, Scott? 90 days before the end of the year, I think. So by October 1st of this year, if they want it out, they'd have to notify us, and it's 5 years.
Yeah.
They have to commit to. And it's just, I believe it's the same with EMS.
Yeah, same as EMS. Yeah.
Okay.
Honorable Mayor, common council members. First, I'd like to thank outgoing council member McCormick for his support of the fire department and my tenure here. Although I didn't always look forward to your questions, I did appreciate your support, and you stood solid with supporting the fire department with all of our equipment changes and stuff in recent. So thank you, and thank you for your service on the council.
Sure, Scott. You ready for some questions?
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be lots. No, really, what we're looking for, honestly, I don't know how much background we really need to do on this. We've had multiple studies. You've had volumes of information on this. I guess really what I'm looking for is, do we want to build a fire station or not? I would like a decision to either move forward or find an alternative source. I'm not going to stand before you and tell you we absolutely have to have a new fire station, but I will say we absolutely have to have more space. I was going through a lot of this information, and the 2009 study, so we're talking 9 years ago, one of the quotes was, "Public safety departments are pressed for space to the point where various areas of operation are inefficient, and in many cases have safety issues due to lack of space or otherwise inappropriate conditions." That was 9 years ago. It hasn't gotten better, and really we need to address it. So what I would ask the Common Council to do is, do we want to move forward and build a station, or do we want to vote it down and look at remodeling the existing station? But in my mind, one of those things has to be done. We've spent a lot of time, Councilmember Alms, myself, also Brenda Malossi, the Finance Director, Mike Johnson, the Economic Development Director, on, does this make sense for the city? Does this spot make sense for the city? It does. It's its own piece of property. It's not a Class A property. We're looking at behind a strip mall. We're not taking a good piece of property off the tax rolls. It fits. We had the GIS study done. The city spent a lot of money on this multiple times. That we know we need a fire station. We have the property. And I guess I ask you is, are we ready to do it, or do we want to take an alternative and look at remodeling the existing station? I can go over more stuff with it, but I think we're all well aware of the issue.
What do you, or maybe this is for Mike, I don't know, what's the plan for the current fire station if a new one is built
I think
for that property?
Mike would probably better address that.
Thank you. I think at this point, what my recommendation would be is to put it out to the public and see, get for proposals, whether it be, here's cash, an offer for the property as is, here's a development proposal with parking, commercial, whatever it may be, and see what the market might be, for development there, or for, parking or whatever it may be.
I would disagree with you a little bit about putting it out there when we are so tight for space downtown. That's something I'm not interested in doing, is selling that property yet, unless it entertains something with parking.
And I think we would reserve that right in whatever, I just think having some sort of path forward I think makes sense. And, it'd be up to you folks as the policymakers to decide whether that's parking or if that's something entirely different. I don't know. But I think we need to, if we're moving forward with the development of a new fire station, address what we've got existing too, and do it all at the same time, because I think that there might be some benefits to doing that.
Scott, what are you looking at in terms of a timeline?
Well, ideally, if we've moved forward, we would probably early May look at interviewing engineering firms to sign on engineering firm to do design and architectural, and then move forward on letting bids and that after that. Best case scenario, possible move in 19, sometime in 19, end of 19. Best case, depends upon what happens and what we build. But
What's the price tag?
that's a good question. Well, we have a lot. Originally, I believe they're talking 8 to 10. We're looking at obviously trying to sharpen the pencil as much as we can. Brendan and I have been visiting some other stations in that. We found a comparable one in Cottage Grove that's just being finished that was a little bit more, but we're trying to do it as efficiently as possible. So, when the engineering's done, I give you something more firm. $7 million would be about, I'm guessing, because they're predicting 8 to 10. Cottage Groves was 9 with a similar square footage, but I think we're looking at. Obviously, we know money is an issue, but we also want to come out with a good product. But I think there is a little bit of room there to work. But that's why I think once you get going on the engineering, we can do it. And worst case scenario is at that point when you get those firm numbers, you can cut back. The big variable here is for us the rooms, the bedrooms, and that. I think it's a must at this point. I think we really should do it, but it is one area that is a possible where we could save a little money at the end and not do it now and plan for it. But again, according to Councilmember Moore said, it will not be a Taj Mahal. It'll be very efficient and it'll be useful. And we would do everything we could from the get-go. And with that in mind, not going with designing something and then saying, well, we're going to come with this and then we're going to cut it back. We're going to go from the beginning on designing an efficient, long-term solution to our issue. Do you envision having an all-volunteer model for the foreseeable future? We've addressed this before. I would like to see it as long as we possibly can. We're just doing a test now. We had 14 applicants. And that's the most efficient way to run the fire department. And I say former Chief Fry is here. It's really mostly from him, not a lot from me, but they set such a great foundation from training and everything else. We are able to continue to get people, and we are, like now we're getting 14 people. So that being said, everybody could quit tomorrow, but I would like to see this as far into the future as possible. Having the bedrooms and stuff there would still be help with during storms and that. Even if we don't have people staying overnight, we would have the ability now, even if it's this volunteer model, where people would have the ability to stay there if they needed to be or if we had a storm. So it's not like it'd be totally wasted that they'd be sitting idle. We would possibly find it. And then a lot of times the next step between going now and full-time is a duty crew model, where in your times of need, like during the day shift, if we didn't have many, you could hire people on a part-time basis to fill some of those as a stopgap measure to the next level of the full-time. So that's kind of a natural progression rather than just jumping into the full-time model. But in the foreseeable future, I would like to say as long as we possibly can, we'd keep this model going.
Would the requirements of the station change if the model went from volunteer to part-time to full-time?
No, and we would design it for the full-time. We would design it a 50 or 40 year that it would not have to change. It would be able to fold right into that. One difference of, and actually Chief Fry, I look back, the paperwork started in 04, which precipitated 08, the study in 09. That study recommended 2 fire stations and that model. What has changed since then in Cottage Grove, a lot of other cities are doing it, is going to one main station, kind of a hub and spoke, and go out from there versus having multiple stations. So actually, with that change in thought, we would be going to that model with more centralized station, and then eventually, if we had demand, but coming out of there to get out. So that is one change from the '09 study. But yeah, so it would be able to be set to go with a full time if need be, as is. Really, the only difference is the living quarters. Everything else we need now.
Three questions. Are you?
I'm done for now.
Okay. Without muddy in the water, the 3 questions are: does this council want to combine the EMS with the station? I think we need to decide, and if we do, what's our threshold of cost, and do we decide tonight, do we bond for both or one?
So can I address that as long as we're on here? If we move forward tonight, and you said, let's go ahead with this, I'm thinking the earliest we'd probably do some interviews would be early May. By the time we actually signed on an engineering firm would be so early on in the stage of building that the report will be back from 5 Bugles on what the cost will be for Ward, and they'll have a much better idea of what exactly needs to be done. And so we would be so early on that at that point, if that needed to be, if the prices came back and said we ran into some stuff, we don't know what we have going on, it's going to cost 3 times what we thought because there's something there, we could easily roll that into the design phase, and we wouldn't skip a beat because we have a lot of legwork to do to that point. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think in my mind to make the decision now is maybe a little ahead of schedule until you get all the information back from the 5 Bugles on the Ward site. If we move forward, I guess what I'm saying is we're not leaving them out of the picture if need be. 3 months from now or 2 months from now, we need to redesign it.
What I'm saying is, do we, as a council, we need to bond for 12 million, or we're going to bond for 9 million or 7 million? And I think we don't know how much EMS would cost up there, a separate building.
Well, that preliminary estimate was 500,000, but again, as Scott is saying, until we get the report back, we don't know for sure.
Or do we build the
It was
fire?
500,000, and it was going to cost a lot more to add it to the fire building.
Mm-hmm. But you do it
purposes
right
are
the first time, it only hurts once.
Sure.
And if, we're in flux with EMS, it doesn't make sense for us to bond for it all right now and build it with the potential of adding it at a future time, as you kind of alluded to. I don't want to slow the process of giving you a fire station, because we're well past building that for you. We should have been done a long time ago, but it is what it is. And I will support building the fire, but I'm thinking if we have an EMS situation, would it make sense long-term to include it and bite the bullet now instead of waiting? I don't know, I can't.
I always assumed that Ward Avenue would be developed as a complete site with EMS and fire, whether they're in the same building or not, because there are buildings there that EMS can use, and then the fire station can go. And we've talked about this, what was that, a month ago or not, right? I mean, so to your point, I think in my mind, the two go together. I don't think administratively they could be combined, but physically I don't think it makes sense at this point.
Chief, in your mind, do they go together?
It's a good question. If you're running a fire-based EMS service, which means the firefighter does both jobs, it has to happen, it has to be together. If you're running as 2 total separate entities in departments, in this case, I look at what's better, everything brand new sounds really good, but the reality is if you have 12,500 square feet that is there and needs to be remodeled at, I don't know the exact cost per square foot versus building it at $200+ a square foot, that's why we got to this point, is it just makes money sense right now to do that. And I don't know if there's a good answer, but we also, if we step back another step and get back to what Tom Zilli was saying, they have doors falling off the public works and we have everything else. So in the meantime, if that $1 million or $2 million we could save and put it into some other, all our city departments probably can use something. And it's really a decision up to the council. Where do you want to put that money now?
He's saying no in a long way.
Well, it is. I mean, I guess you have to, and I like to take a holistic approach as the city. I mean, we aren't the only department in the city. And I understand that. And I know there's a lot of other departments having it. So at this point, I'd say no, and I'd maybe use the money somewhere else. And down the road, we're lucky enough that the city purchased a site that has the availability to add on and to do things with it. And we're still not 100% sure with EMS. We know they're going to stay the model we think is going to be the one model, but down the road, if it changes, we have that availability to add on and do things. But I think Chief Lisk decided that this was what's best, and I guess really it's more up to him than me and his decision that he wanted to go with the ward. So I would rely and pass that decision on to him and go with his answer.
What, Brenda, what's the lead time on bonding? 3 to 4 months? Correct. Yeah, I'm just kind of answering your question too, Randy, about timing and everything. So
right, and there's no doubt we have to
we
bond.
can bond anytime, for this type of project as opposed to our biannual bonding. So.
Also, Tom, I meant together at the site at Ward Avenue.
I understood that.
Yeah, okay.
Separate buildings.
Yeah.
Not integrated into one building.
Right.
And Brenda, I have a question for you. And I know you've answered it before, but I don't have my notes or anything on it. How much is the city's bonding ability compromised by whatever size project it is? Well, in other words, what can we go up to be safe?
We would want to stay, every year we want to stay below $10 million. Otherwise, we have increased bonding costs. And we have, off the top of my head, it's like $70 million in bonding capacity. So we're well below those limits, but we want to stay each year below the 10 million, at 10 million or below.
That 10 million new or 10 million aggregate?
New.
And we haven't done anything this year because we did the 2-year bonding last year. But if you were to do the 7 in 2019, for example, and that's your 2-year cycle for your other capital projects, that would then limit how much you could do for.
Well, we could borrow the 10 and then borrow or use 2 from undesignated, 2 million to help pay it down.
You could do whatever
Correct,
you want.
and that would be one of our recommendations would be to buy down fire station debt with our existing general fund balance. We did that last in 2009 when we purchased the library, and actually we didn't bond for the library, we paid cash for the library. And so council has done a good job of looking at that general fund undesignated and using it for one-time capital projects.
And our partners would pay, how would they pay?
For the fire station?
Yes.
If council wanted to keep the fire station as our asset, we would do 100% of the bonding, and we would work out some kind of a rent payment that we would charge back to the partners, and we'd have to look at that.
They don't want ownership, right, Bill?
Correct.
So it would be 100% ours.
And they understand that the current building is not.
Right.
So the rent payment will become part of the operating costs?
Correct. And then there would be increased operating costs, remember, just because it's going to be a larger building. And so we'd have to look at how much the rent payment would be and those increased operating costs to verify that they can afford that.
Plus the sale of this property would help.
Correct, and it is our asset.
Right.
This we believe.
You forgot about that, Randy.
Well, we ain't selling nothing yet.
Right. Okay.
Did that answer your
Thanks.
question,
Yes, it
Tom?
did.
Okay.
Brenda, one question. Have we any idea what that rent payment might be relative to what they're paying currently?
No, I haven't looked at it. We've been looking at rent payments in regard to EMS, but honestly, we'd have to go back and look at that rent payment.
Right. The fire department doesn't pay any rent right now because they're a
Correct.
city department.
So, no, our partners, are they not paying?
They recoup it through what we charge back as part of our operating costs, just the regular operating costs.
Correct.
Brenda?
Yep, but the building over there is so old that that debt would be paid off. So we would have to look through that to see if we would
the
charge.
partners are not, what the partners pay us, there's no rent in there.
All right, so relative to the payment that they're making, any idea? Obviously, you know what I'm thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
They're at levy limits.
Correct.
And have they weighed in at all on what their capacity is to be able to pay rent?
No,
Not specifically.
no. We'll look at that quickly.
But I don't want to say anything, but it sounds like they're in favor of it, right? Or to a certain extent.
Favor of the building, knowing that there's higher operational costs going along with that building. But, you know.
And it may be a change of how the formula in which they pay us back for operating costs might have to change too. It may not be called rent per se, but, you know, let's say the budget's, what is it, $800,000 and each municipality pays a certain percentage based on runs and based on valuation. Maybe as part of this, we'd have to address how they reimburse us, whether we call it rent or whether they just pay a different percentage of the operating costs.
I don't know that matters relative to their levy limits.
Correct.
So you can call it whatever you want if it's just, you know.
What formal action are you looking for then?
Can I have a new fire station?
Thank you, Brendan.
Seems like we need a full proposal here
Now that-
with all the nuts and bolts on it.
Now that we have a fire department,
I guess what I'm looking for is
Should take a while.
is an answer, honestly, and we can talk about proposals, we can do all that. Really, it's a matter of what's the city's, what's the desire of the council. What do you want to do? And part of that is, as we get deeper into this, like we're just discussion is, do we want to have, if you want to incorporate some of the partners in, then we open up the contract and then that's more of a closed session thing, or does the city feel that they own the building now, they want to build a new one and own it, and then work with the partners? We're very fortunate that our partners have helped us a lot in the past. We helped them. It's a mutually beneficial relationship for the city to have those partners, in my mind. In the past, the city did provide the building. Obviously, this building is more, but that's a decision you have to make. My feeling is I think it would be to continue the way we're doing it and purchase the building would be nice. And they understand that the operating costs are going to be more. We're talking, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we did get projected operating costs too, and I had given them to Brenda, just, you know, heat and everything else. It's definitely going to be more, and so that's going to be more for them also. As you know, they all have paid their portion of the equipment to date too, so you know, everything we have sitting over there has been partially paid for by our partners too, so we're very fortunate. So the motion, I'd like a motion to move forward, I guess, or guidance of what I can go back and tell the firefighters that we're doing. We've had this discussion 3 years ago. We were going to, EMS was going to move to Ward. We were going to come here and remodel. It was kind of a done deal. I totally understand situations came up that got put on hold. We're back to that same situation, only it's 3 years later, and we still have equipment sitting outside, and we have, it looks like if EMS goes up to Ward, then we have equipment sitting there that doesn't have a place to go, and if we stay here, we need to do some remodeling. So really, as far as the direction, does the council want to build a new fire station or not? And we, you know, as far as an exact price, we know the price is in that range. We get the, you know, 7 to 10, let's say, if we do it for that. But what direction would you like to go, and what can I do to help to maybe solidify that decision? Like I said, we've had 2 studies, volumes of information, and I know it's not a fun decision to make, but really is what we just would kind of like to know what you feel like, what direction you want to go in, and answer yes or no, if that makes sense.
Well, does anybody feel that at some point a fire station needs to be built? I mean, I think one needs to be built.
Absolutely.
100%.
So delaying it just increases the cost of building it.
Yes.
So let's move forward.
Is that a motion?
It is.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion?
Okay.
What do you vote?
What are you going to say, Randy?
What does move
Do you
forward
want,
mean?
yeah, do you want it to go to,
This is,
go for a bond schedule, or are you saying?
no, I'm just saying that it's the motion that the chief wanted, which is an indication of what the city wants to do. So I'm making a motion that the city should consider moving forward with at least
A new fire station.
a new
up
fire
on Ward
station.
Avenue
Yes.
property. Okay.
And I guess then, if it's open for discussion, what would you like from me? I mean, Brenda's prepared like all the bonding information, and everything. So from the money standpoint, other than an exact price, what we really can't get to that point. Kind of like where you're at with EMS.
Yeah.
We're kind of at that point now. Is it would be nice to be able to start moving forward with, if nothing else, interviewing firms to get more of a hard cost of what it will be. And until then, I can't really come back and I can show you a picture of Cottage Grove and show you what that is. But I mean, I think we're different and we're going to try to do it.
You want a specific motion to move forward with what?
I guess moving forward with the engineering and be able to, Bill, I guess, was brought this forward. But yeah, with an engineering to be able to
That makes
get
sense.
moving.
I'll change my motion to that, because later on you can make a decision about the fire station based on the engineering. So I'll move that the city authorize the fire department to move forward with engineering.
And you would bring proposals back for that, correct? Or we have to identify a source for them.
Well, I think at this point, really, it would be, we would pick a firm and then we would probably get a price from them, what their cost would be to do all the engineering and architecture. But in that scope, they should be able to give us a better idea of what the building itself will cost. A lot of it has to do with square footage. We're very fortunate the site, unless there's something underneath that we don't know about, is a pretty straightforward piece of property to develop. It's relatively flat in that, so I don't think the site cost will be anything surprising there. But if we get the firm to tell us roughly what their cost would be, they should be able to come in with a square footage price also. And then we can come forward and say, here's what they're looking at, here's the comparison. In our discussions, one of the thoughts was to have maybe Councilmember Alms, Brenda, Mike Johnson, myself, and then maybe, I don't know if there's one other council member interview the firms so that we have a panel to come forward with to make that decision and recommendation to the council.
So it's not an expenditure?
It wouldn't be until we, make it. It'd be very similar to the process that you just went through with EMS.
And building roads and et cetera.
Yeah.
So it costs money.
Does it make sense if we are looking at Ward to also look at that potential land and building now in tandem? What would happen with that?
What, EMS?
mean the current-
with
the
the
current
current
space.
fire department, with the current fire station, I should
I
say.
don't think you should muddy the water. I think we should focus on,
Separate action.
Yeah, I totally agree, actually.
Because, what if it comes, not saying it will, but what if it comes in more than we think, and then, if you started the process of getting rid of this, hopefully, I don't mean to.
No, and that's fine.
Jinx
And,
it, but-
and really, and honestly, that's why I'm here, because nobody has really the appetite to spend a lot of money, but we know something needs to be done. And if there is a doubt in the council's mind that this might not happen, then maybe we just need to make that decision to remodel the existing, and we could get a little more parking and stuff here. I don't think in my mind that's the best decision, but we need to move forward. And I think this is a good step to at least come back with some real numbers.
All right, we've got a motion in front of us, Joyce. Is that okay?
I'll second the amended
All
motion.
right, so we've got motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Thanks, John.
do you want to wait on bonding then?
You'll have to wait until we have numbers.
Well, you could always bond up to 10 and not to exceed 10, and then caveat of 2 to get the ball started. I don't know if that's, she's not listening.
Wow.
Well, we'll address it, and if we think we should get started, we'll put it on the next agenda.
Okay.
All right, discussion and possible action on a pre-development agreement between the City of Hudson and St. Croix Meadows LLC, 2200 Carmichael Road.
So obviously with the dog track closing, with new owners, this is a development agreement. It's a little bit bigger than the other ones that we've seen. So what we're asking for is that St. Croix Meadows LLC provide us with a $50,000 deposit to assist us, or to basically will pay for all of our additional review costs that are going to be associated with it. The project scope, it's the same project, but there might be some tweaks and changes. We still have a lot of work to do in relatively short order of time. This obviously pays for that.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
Yeah, good job, you guys, getting this in the barn.
No kidding.
After how many years of working on it?
They said it couldn't be done.
They said it couldn't be done. And you guys got it done.
It
so-
shut down the month after I came.
Really?
2001, it's been, yeah.
Yep.
It looked nice when it was a Ford Ranger parking lot, I thought, for a while, you know.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on Resolution 7-18 authorizing the submittal of an application to the Wisconsin Idle Sites Redevelopment Grant Program.
I left a handout at each of your spaces. This grant program is through the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, and what it is intended for is for idle sites that have sat vacant or underutilized for a period of at least 5 years. Well, it's been 20. So the state sets aside, I think, $2 million annually for this program. They allow grants up to $500,000. This is a reimbursable grant that we would apply for, and then as a developer, we're to certify those costs. We would reimburse the developer. It's not a matching grant. It's one of those, I don't want to call it free money, but free money grants, the good ones. So this resolution is part of that application. So WSB, who is the engineer and planning firm working with the developer in coordination with our Regional Economic Development Director, Heather Smith at WEDC, and myself, you know, we've got to a point where we've got an application ready to go, but the council has to authorize that submittal.
What does that mean to be a reimbursable grant?
So the grant would be to the city. And then the city would reimburse the costs as they're certified by the developer that's doing the demolition. It's for demolition, site remediation, and what's going to occur there, hopefully here in the very near future, is basically everything gets wiped out. The existing building, all the old kennels, the pavement, all the trees that are growing up through the pavement, and basically just making it a clean site. So. They certify those costs. I think we would probably look at doing that, at least 2 certifications, so that we can, you know, because we're the ones that have to be audited by the state when this happens, to make sure that we aren't, you know, sending that grant money in an inappropriate manner that's not certified. So we'd probably look at 2 separate disbursements, reimbursements to the developer as that occurred.
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion and second to suspend. Roll call.
Morissette.
Yes.
Alms.
Yes.
McCormick.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Hoggett.
Yes.
Hull.
Yes.
Move to adopt Resolution 7.
Motion's approved. The rules are suspended.
Move to adopt Resolution 7-18.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So the building has been determined to be unusable?
Yep, the cost to get that building back up to what it was is too much.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Thank you.
Nice job, Mike. Thanks. I have no communications recommendations. Anybody on future agenda items? Council members? Attorney? No? Anybody? All right. This is Councilmember McCormick's last meeting. And I guess I'd like to say, first of all, it's been a real pleasure serving with you, Tom. I think that you have demonstrated some magnificent leadership. Leadership to me is taking on challenging issues when you know that you might be fighting against some strong headwinds, but knowing that what you're doing is right. I think that's the most important thing, most basic, probably, premise of good, solid leadership. And you have demonstrated that, in my opinion. And it has truly been a pleasure serving with you. So, if you would, it's a plaque. The City of Hudson extends its grateful appreciation to Tom McCormick for his dedicated service to the citizens of Hudson, serving as alderperson of the 3rd District, including service as Common Council President and as a member of the Finance and Public Works Committees and the St. Croix EMS Commission, dated April 2014 to April 2018, and given under my hand and the seal of the city on this 9th day of April 2018. Tom, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rich. I prevailed upon the mayor to sit in his spot to give some closing remarks. First and most importantly, I want to preface this by saying that I don't ordinarily like to read when I'm talking publicly, but I wanted to make sure that what I said was precise, and so that's why I'll be reading part of it. First and most importantly, it has been a privilege and an honor to serve the citizens of District 3, and I really appreciate the opportunity to do so. Second, I very much enjoyed working with Mayor O'Connor and city staff, particularly Brenda, Devin, Jen, the 2 Toms, Sifko and Zuli, Denny Darnold, and Mike Johnson. I've also enjoyed working with our city attorney, Kathy McKittrick. Although we didn't always agree on things, I enjoyed working with you very much. Until tonight, I have not publicly responded to the comments of various people, including St. Croix EMS employees, made at public meetings or in emails and social media postings during the period leading up to and continuing after the June 19, 2017 vote on the proposed contract with Lakeview. I have neither the interest nor the time to detail the personal attacks on my integrity, character, and honesty, or the lies and misinformation stated or posted about the contract and the role of the mayor and I in negotiating it. Instead, my comments tonight are addressed to the council. When I ran for the council in 2014, I told the residents of District 3 in my brochure that, quote, I have no agenda beyond serving the citizens of Hudson. I will make decisions based on the merits of an issue and not whether the decision will be popular or acceptable to any particular interest group, close quote. I said that, I promised that, because I think fact-based decision-making is the best approach for public officials to take in reaching decisions. I appreciate and encourage citizen input on public issues. However, when citizen input primarily consists of vicious personal attacks or the spreading of false or misleading information about an issue, its value for fact-based decision-making lessens. Some important facts were lost, overlooked, or ignored in the hysteria created before the June 19 vote. However, these facts and financial realities are not going away, and this council will at some point have to come to grips with them. If people on my side of an issue ever publicly stated, either publicly or online, something untrue about any of you, I would publicly call them out and tell them to knock it off. To my knowledge, none of you has ever publicly commented or posted any message admonishing St. Croix EMS supporters about posting false information or personal attacks. If you have, correct me now. Some could interpret your failure to publicly object to the personal attacks or misleading information as approval of such tactics. As council members, you should encourage reasonable public discourse, not hateful comment. If you truly want to be community leaders, You should always take the high road and encourage supporters of your position to do the same. Your job as public officials is to serve the interest of all citizens. That sometimes requires that hard decisions be made in order to serve those interests. Our citizens deserve decisions by this council based on facts and not emotion. Fellow council members, I don't expect that tonight you will respond positively to my remarks. However, I hope you will consider them in the future when another emotional public issue comes before you. And with that, I'll move to adjourn.
Okay. Got a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Got a motion second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Don.